Good morning. If you would, please, it looks like you already have, but in the script it says to please ask everyone to find their seats and prepare for service. Thanks. Good morning and Happy New Year, especially on this 1, 1, 2, 3, nice Fibonacci connection. Welcome to the UUCC. My name is Mark Drews, and I am honored to serve as your service leader today. For those who are here in the sanctuary, please be advised that the service is being streamed on YouTube. To those watching this, please know that while we'd really welcome you to be here, we understand and we hope you enjoy the service. Also want to remind everyone that we will have, my notes are correct, a pre and post Zoom that we're making sure that our community is well connected. Encourage all of you to please read your order of service for any announcements in your printed order of service, but also take advantage of the weekly bulletins that are sent out to you, as well as visiting our website, making that your source of information. But sometimes there are those events that, for whatever reason, don't show up in the order of service. The timeliness to place it on the website isn't just right. So we do have an opportunity at this time to hear from our treasurer, Jenny Verne, if you would take a few steps forward to make a special announcement to our congregation.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? It's an honor to stand here this morning and share some good news to start the year. Thanks to the generosity of our congregation, and particularly the extreme generosity of a couple of our members, the Board of Trustees has over the past year and a half has been paying down our mortgage. I have a little piece of paper here in my hand, looks insignificant, but this is actually the receipt that was given to me by the relationship banker at Truist when I went in this week and paid the mortgage off. We're about 5.5 years ahead of schedule on that, which is just wonderful as far as I'm concerned. Someone said you can't make that announcement to the congregation because then they'll think they can stop pledging or stop giving. No, please don't. What this means to us is that we're saving $830 and change every single month. And that might seem like a little bit of money to some people. It's a whole lot of money to me. And it makes a big impact on our budget. Very soon, our finance committee is going to be working on next fiscal year's budget. And this is going to allow them to do at least two things. One is it's going to give them a little freedom to expand and add to our programs and our charitable work. And the other is it's going to give us some freedom to meet the needs of our plant and equipment better than we have been able to do, and perhaps even set some money aside in each year to meet future obligations. Anyway, I thought it was just very important that that be shared with the congregation. Thank you all for your generosity. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate the good news. And just as we practice good financial wellness, we also practice good social emotional wellness, as well as issues dealing with health. And with that, the COVID restrictions, though they have been lifted some, we do encourage folks to please continue to practice safe distancing and safe well-being for others. I think Dr. Cooper shared earlier as I came in that the numbers in Lexington are really out the roof, and they're rising here in Columbia as well. As an announcement to parents, as I look out, if you need to occupy your children, we do have toys, books, and other activities in the back of the social hall. And now, if we would, please center ourselves for today's service, and remember to silence all electronic devices or anything that makes noise, and we'll turn it over this time to Anna and Elizabeth.
This morning, we're still in the season of winter, even as we turn with the beautiful sunshine towards longer days. I wish you a happy new year, and Elizabeth and I are going to sing Dark of Winter by Shelley Jackson Denham.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And when my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
Thank you, Anna and Elizabeth. And if you would, please join me in the congregational covenant found in your order of service. And if you would, please stand. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, and the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. If you would, please be seated. And again, welcome to the UUCC. As many of you know, our minister is the Reverend Stephen Robinson, and on those Sundays when Stephen is not in the pulpit, we depend highly on our members of our congregation as well as our wider community. And that will be the case today. As you know, Reverend Robinson has been sick for a couple weeks, and in the spirit of teammanship, Richard will be providing the sermon this morning. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We are a covenantal religion, which means we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. And as UUs, we side with love, embracing all people, regardless of their age, their economic status, their color, their race, their status, their physical ability, or religious background. We have been officially recognized by the UUA as a welcoming congregation, which means we welcome all LGBTQ individuals. We especially invite young families and their children, and we have a nursery if it is needed. We encourage everyone to wear name tags so that we get to know you better. Board members wear green name tags, and they always welcome your recommendations, your suggestions, your ability to down pay a mortgage payment. This time, would the members of the board please stand so you may be recognized? Thank you. Appreciate all the good work you do. This time, we'd like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. Visitors, if you would, are willing and able, please complete a visitor card that's in front of your chair. This time, Richard will come around and provide you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Appreciate it.
Yeah, give me about a half hour to get back here to the back row.
Hi, my name's Annie, and this is my second time visiting.
Annie, welcome.
Welcome.
Right behind you, Richard.
Hi, my name's Katie, and this is my second time visiting as well.
Katie, welcome back.
Good morning, welcome.
We're the Vincents. This is our first time. We just moved here.
Welcome.
Yes.
And again, to save you from answering the same question repeatedly throughout after the service, from where have you moved? Okay, well, welcome. Appreciate it. Tampa. We have a special pair of chalice lighters that will be coming forward as a way to mark an 89th birthday. Peck and Rebecca Drennan will be lighting our chalice this morning and sharing a few words.
Birthday boy.
Well, I'm delighted to make it this far. I've checked the edition. I thought that was too many years, but I guess I'll accept it. It's nice to be here, and it's been a delight to serve with you people. It's been wonderful.
Yes, and the older I get, I'm only turning 80, so he's got me beat. But I am convinced, and part of it comes out of this community, that the most important thing is to love and to serve. And thank you for all of you teaching me more about how to do that. Thank you. And we'll light our...
Yeah, let's light this thing.
And thank you both for your love and your service to the congregation. Spirit of light and life, come unto us.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Anna will introduce our opening hymn.
I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, number 318 in the gray hymnal. Please stand as you're willing and able.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. We pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
This time, I'd like to welcome Richard McLeod to the podium for the opening words.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny, particularly for making that astounding announcement, which we'll probably keep clapping for a long time. So, yeah, yes, thank you for that. It's my pleasure to be in the pulpit this morning. I mean, it's perhaps not because Stephen is ill and we will miss him, but I'm glad to take over for a moment here anyhow. I have opening words I'm going to do this morning. It's part of a story that you've all heard, but the little twist on it is that this is the way that Martin Luther King Jr. tells this story. There is a parable in the Bible about a traveler who is stripped of clothing, beaten, and left half dead along the roadside. First, a Jewish priest and then a Levite come by, but both avoid the man. Finally, a Samaritan happens upon the traveler and helps the injured man. Now, here's the quote from Martin Luther King. The first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, "If I stopped to help this man, what will happen to me?" But the Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? Opening words.
Thank you, Richard. As I look out and I see the 46 of us who've come together on this fine Sunday morning, love to be able to ask how many of you recognize the book that I'm going to share part of in our story for all ages. The book is entitled The Three Questions by John Muth. All right, let's sit back and enjoy. Would welcome the children to come down. However, as I look out and about, perhaps all of us can just sit exactly where we are. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I can find the answers to my three questions, Nikolai continued, then I would know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered the first question, and Sonia, the heron, spoke and said, "To know the best things to do, one must plan in advance," she said. Google, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, "You will know when to do the good things if you watch and pay attention." Then Pushkin, the dog, was dozing off and rolled and said, "You can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep you watch and help you decide when to do good things. For example, Google, a coconut is about to fall on your head." Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked a second question. Who is the most important one? "Those who are closest to heaven," said Sonia, circling into the sky. "Those who know how to heal the sick," said Google as he was stroking his noggin. And Pushkin responded, "Those who make the rules." Nikolai thought and thought some more. And then he asked the third question, what is the right thing to do? "Flying," said Sonia. "Having fun all the time," said Google. "Fighting," barked Pushkin right away. Then the boy thought for a while. He loved his friends, and he knew they were all trying to do their very best to help him with the right answer. But their answers didn't seem just right. Then he came up with an idea. "I know," he thought. "I'll go ask Leo the turtle. He's lived for a very long time. Certainly, he will know the answers that I'm looking for." And Nikolai hiked up into the mountains where the old turtle lived alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging in the garden. The turtle was old, and digging was very hard for him. "I have 3 questions for you, and I came to you for your help," Nikolai said. "When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do?" Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. He went on with his digging. "You must be very tired," said Nikolai. "Let me help you." And the turtle gave him a shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for the young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept digging until it was completed. But just as he finished, the winds blew wildly and the rain burst into darkened clouds, and they moved toward the cottage for some shelter. Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help, and he ran where he found an injured panda, injured from the wind that blew down a tree. And he picked the panda up and took them to Leo's, where he began comforting her. When she woke up, she said, "Where is my baby? Where is my baby? Who are you? And where is my baby?" Nikolai ran and took off to find the baby panda and rescued the panda and brought him back to his mom. The next morning, the sun was warm and the birds sang and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and the baby. At that moment, Sonia, Google, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right, and Nikolai felt peace within himself. He still, however, didn't find the answers to his 3 questions, so he asked Leo one more time. And the old turtle looked at the boy. But your answers, or your questions, have been answered. They have? Said Nikolai. Yes. For yesterday, if you had not stayed with me to help me dig in the garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging in the garden. And the most important one at that time was me. And the most important thing to do was to help me in my garden. And later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and the child. And the most important thing was to take care of them and to make them safe. For remember that there's only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with, and the most important thing to do is for the one standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to the most important questions in the world. And that is why we are here. We'll bypass the singing of the children out unless any of you have to use the restroom or leave at this time, okay? And then but I don't know if we've got that song written yet. This time, if you have a significant, we come to part of our service where we share significant joys and concerns. I did take liberty today to ask that because we didn't have service last week, that there may be significant joys and concerns that you would like to share. So the 7 candles during the course of the morning were added to as folks were coming in, because your voices are very important to us, and the messages that you convey are very important. Our first concern comes from Yolanda Guglung, who shared with us this morning that Bill Barr passed away, and Carita is with him and his family at the hospital at the time, and we'll probably hold back any calls until we feel like she's ready to go ahead and receive them. So we light this first candle in memory of Bill Barr. So at this time, if any of you have candle or joy, concern, please come forward and share at this time. And if you didn't pick one up, I picked one up for you.
Hi, it's Elle. Hi. I have a candle of joy in the spirit of the new year and committing to resolutions and like a recommitment to a resolution to focus on the community. I have some words from a song that I really like, 13th Century Metal by Brittany Howard. I will think before I speak, to be wary of who I give my energy to, because it is needed for a greater cause, greater than my own pride, and that cause is to spread the enlightenment of love, compassion, and humanity to those not touched by its light. I stand to protect and focus myself in the betterment of my fellow being. We are siblings, each and every one. I will love my enemy and never become that which is not love. I dedicate my spirit in the service of what is good and fair and righteous. Every day I am alive, I am given opportunities to become that which I admire most of others. I am nonviolent. I am a master student, and my spirit is part of a greater flame that can never be stomped out. I am dedicated to oppose those whose will is division and who are determined to keep us in the dark ages of fear. I hear the voices of the unheard, speak for those who cannot speak, and shelter the minds that carry a message of peace, love, and prosperity. We are all siblings.
Thank you all.
I'm Deb Matherly, and this is both a joy and a sorrow. I met Friday with Andrea, and who's leaving us after 10 years as our administrator. And I'll be meeting on Tuesday with Andrea and with Cindy and Michelle as she's starting as, she's going to be our new administrator. And I'm just so glad that with the Personnel Committee doing all their work to find someone, and with others like Jason Kimbler, who volunteered to fill in if we needed it, and just everyone has pitched in so well and worked so well together that we're going to be having a smooth transition, and just very happy. So thank you all.
Thank you, Deb. All right, this chance for extra candles may take another year to come back. So with this, we will light this final candle as we think about those too deep to share and too close to our chest. So let us light this final candle. Let us take a moment to reflect on these joys and concerns with silent meditation. Thank you. Every Sunday in our collection, we give half of our cash collection to a special nonprofit and special cause. And this month, it is the Minister's Discretionary Fund that is used to help support members of our congregation in the community itself when hardships occur and the need is there. If you're writing by check, please share the plate in the memo line. And at this time, would the ushers please come forward to receive this morning's offering.
This morning's offertory music is the beautiful classic What a Wonderful World by George David Weiss and Bob Thiel. And this is an arrangement by Brent Edstrom.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, congregation. Appreciate all your support, and it demonstrates what a loving and tremendously generous congregation we have. And I couldn't help but think to myself, what a wonderful UU. I'm going to turn it over, speaking of UU, to you, Richard, for the service this morning.
Turn it over to UU. Turn it over to UU. Well, that's kind of easy to say. Well, I know we have a little bit of an abbreviated audience today, but wow, the dedicated and the sober are here. So that's good. Yeah, think about that a little more, I know. Well, first, I do want to send New Year's wishes, condolences, and hopes for a speedy recovery to our minister. We've mentioned this a couple of times now. Reverend Stephen Robertson is battling a rather tenacious illness that prevents him from being with us today, so we hope the best for him. Second thing I want to mention is Happy New Year's Day to you all. This is 2023, which for a lot of us at one point, seemed like a long ways away. But right now it's upon us. So, staring us in the face. Thirdly, I want to remind you that January is South Carolina. Okay? I'm getting signals that I'm not being heard well enough. Is this all right? Testing. Okay, all right, we're good. Anyhow, thirdly, this is South Carolina Interfaith Harmony Month. So in addition this month to hearing Reverend Robinson's sermons scattered throughout here, we have the Columbia Peace Pole Initiative folks that will be here next Sunday on the 8th. And then Dr. Jonathan Leader will be here with us on the 22nd. So be ready for that. New Year's Day is a day when you expect words from a pulpit about resolutions. You expect resolution conversations, you expect conversations with yourself, conversations with other people, sometimes based on those questions about what am I going to do in this new year? And sometimes you get questions and you get answers from a pulpit about which direction you should take in those resolutions. But sometimes you leave with more questions than you have answers. And I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out what's going to happen with you today. My hope is that you will come up with some resolutions that make you satisfied with your own moral stance and your own altruism, which is kind of the topic of what I'm going to present today. Little Johnny came marching home one day from school. He was a little troubled. He was a little perplexed, and his face was kind of in the shape of a question mark. You know, those kind of faces to where he has squinty eyes and a furrowed brow, and one eyebrow is higher than another. And so he walks in the door, and his mother says, "Hey, what's up, Johnny?" And she asked him rather absent-mindedly and looked up from the email that she was writing on her laptop. "Well, Mom, something's wrong with my moral compass." And that's kind of surprised his mother, because he was 9 years old, and it was surprised her that he actually knew what either of those words meant. And he says, "Mom, you know my best friend Adam, right?" And she nodded yes, perhaps less absent-mindedly this time. Well, he and a few other guys got in a fight today, and I was just watching, I promise, I was just watching. Well, the principal broke it up, and the principal asked, "Who started that?" And Adam told him, he says, "Jeremiah started it." "And so what's the problem?" his mother said, at last paying him full attention. "Well, here's the thing, Mom. I know that Jeremiah didn't start it. He was there and may have thrown a few punches defending himself, but he did not start it." "Well, who did start it?" "Well, Mom, actually, Adam started it, not Jeremiah." "So what are you going to do?" Johnny just held off for a minute, being very thoughtful. Well, Adam's my best friend, and I don't want him or the other guys to be mad at me, but I don't want Jeremiah to get the blame because he did not do it. Well, his mom just kind of stared at him for a moment. And she said, Johnny, that's what we call a moral dilemma. It's when your moral compass, as you say, gives you the signals that something's wrong and you have to fix it. Well, so what do I do? If I tell the truth, Adam's going to be mad at me. Well, son, she said gently, now with paying full attention, this has to be up to you, but I'll tell you right now, you will be faced with a lot more of these decisions as you grow up. Well, Johnny just stood there, probably thinking that growing up was not going to be as easy as he once hoped. Today, I'm going to draw you into what can be an endless discussion. I begin with this question: do you consider yourself a moral person? Now, you may want to avoid that question, or at least give yourself time to think about an answer. But to give yourself time, you might reply, well, I don't know. What do you mean by morals? What are your standards? Or you might say something else just to avoid or to postpone such a question, because it's a pretty heavy one. I enjoy a conversation that goes beyond the superficial. Most of the time when we're talking to each other, we exchange pretty much just banalities. You know, like, hello, how are you? Some weather we're having. Who are you going to vote for in the next election? Things like that. But talking about morals begins with defining moral imperatives. And this is not a light discussion. Well, here's a side discussion, just kind of fits in here a little bit. Does morality come from religion, or can it come from a secular foundation? Religious people would tell you that without religion, there would be no morals. True or false? Don't answer. Just think. Can you make a stronger argument for one side or the other? Now, I have my own argument, but I think I'll just leave that one in the back of your mind for a moment. And in this talk, we probably won't even come back to it. It's just something you need to think about. Just for definition and or argument, listen to this and remember it. German philosopher Immanuel Kant said that morality is not to make us happy, but the whole purpose is to do the right thing just for the sake of doing the right thing. He goes on to say, though in different words, that being a moral person has built-in rewards, what we call intrinsic rewards. So if you are a moral person, what do those rewards mean to you? Well, let's start with a definition of what a moral imperative is. Now, moral imperative is a two-word noun, and so it just means the one thing, the thing in itself. It is a thing that must happen because it is the right thing to do, the important thing to do, and it is imperative, then it must, M-U-S-T, must be done. Our own personal moral imperatives are for us personally to figure out, and perhaps they change with time and with context. Philosophers, theologians, even politicians might tie themselves in knots over the question of conduct that is morally wrong. Such a discussion might begin this way. Hope is a moral imperative in that if we expect our species or our society to prosper, we must hope for a better day. So we're obligated for the good of ourselves and others to remain hopeful about everything, are we? Well, yeah. You hope everyone gets vaccinated. You hope everyone is wearing a seatbelt. You hope there's enough baby formula on the shelf. You just have those kind of hopes. Optimism is a moral imperative, kind of like hope, except that optimism is wanting something positive, something good to happen. And it's the quality of being full of hope that something good will happen, yada, yada, yada. Honesty is sort of a moral imperative. And I say sort of because there are limits and interpretations. Remember the story about George Washington and the cherry tree and all the mileage he got out of that being honest? Well, I hate to tell you, but that story is a myth. But it's a good story anyhow. So if I ask you, is honesty a moral imperative, you'd say, well, of course it is. The Bible says we should not bear false witness. The Quran says honesty certainly leads to goodness, and goodness leads to paradise. The Buddha says that honesty is the seventh mental perfection. But listen to this. He gives a little slack when he says, well, lying is sinful, yes, but the exception is when you do it with meritorious intentions that he sometimes calls benevolent deception. Examples would be like in response to when a woman asks you, does this dress make me look too fat? So what is your answer? Well, you prevaricate a little and then you move on. Or if you just meet somebody again and say, oh, of course I remember you, when really you don't. But that's a nice response. Me? I'm 39 years old. Harmless dishonesty? Well, I'm really not sure where I'm going with this, but it just has to do with something let me move on from. Consider that moral imperatives are the shoulds in our lives. Shoulds, S-H-O-U-L-D-S, the shoulds in our lives. We like to think that we are inherently a moral species, and if our world is to survive, there are certain moral imperatives that we must practice. You can call them moral obligations instead of imperatives if you think that makes them sound a little bit less threatening. Either way, moral imperatives are those things that people ought to do because in some sense, they owe such actions to whatever God they recognize, to others in their local society, or to themselves. Here's a few questions to ponder later today, or tomorrow, or next year, or after you leave. And these are randomly presented to you, but they're just things that you can think about. So what things do you consider to be moral imperatives? Now, these things I'll mention, no judgments, no personal opinions. Is it a moral imperative to be vaccinated? How about as a nation to accept refugees, immigrants, and other marginalized people? How about, is it a moral imperative to be a vegetarian or a vegan? How about, is it an imperative to forgive people? Is it a moral imperative to be charitable? How about addressing climate change? How about warning someone of danger? If you see it, you say it. Is it a moral imperative to not drink if you're an alcoholic? That hits. Is it a moral imperative to not be cruel to animals? How about to love your family? Is that imperative? How about to respect authority? How about to respect the property of others? And these are just a few things I mentioned just to kind of get you thinking. What I've said so far is just an introduction to my main topic of altruism. A-L-T-R-U-I-S-M, altruism. So for the next hour and a half of my sermon today, what are you laughing at? I don't get that. Anyhow, for the next hour and a half of my sermon today, let's consider that altruism is a moral imperative that is a canopy for other moral imperatives, sub-imperatives, if you will. Behavior is described as altruistic when it is motivated by a desire to benefit someone other than yourself, and for that person's sake, not yours. The term is used as the opposite of self-interested or selfish or egoistic. Altruism means a spiritual and material concern for the quality of life of other human beings or even of other life forms. It's selflessness, the opposite of selfishness. You may describe yourself as altruistic if you care for others more than you care for yourself. The golden rule, as found in most religious teachings, is altruistic because of the selflessness inferred. Altruism refers to behavior that benefits another individual, sometimes at a cost to yourself. For example, giving your lunch away is altruistic because it helps someone who's hungry, but at the cost of being hungry yourself. The only reward you may get is an emotional one, or it may be a plaque for your wall, or extra stars in your crown if you go to heaven. Have a look at the cover of your order of service. You have it, right? Everybody has one. If you don't, share with somebody, because this is important that you have a look at it. So have a look at the front of your order of service. You will see an example of the altruism I'm describing. What you see there is a man doing something for the benefit of others that could really be a cost to himself. You see that? You get the impact of it? Actually, another picture I considered using as a negative example is a picture, I didn't put that on the front of the service, but it's a picture of one of our recent presidents walking in the rain, holding an umbrella, when his wife, the First Lady, was walking behind without an umbrella. I have that picture if you want to see it afterwards. We've all heard this recurring discussion about who's allowed in a crowded lifeboat, or who even should get on the lifeboat, and those who should remain on a sinking ship if there were not enough seats on the lifeboat. Old story. Most of us have a moral compass, and we have a sense of altruism that each one of us think is normal or rational, whatever either of those means. But they make us normal and rational human beings. Now think about your own set of moral imperatives that controls your conscience and spends the day with you. You sometimes sense that you have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. I have a personal story about altruism. Recently, I took my great-grandson, Kane, age 10, to the State Museum, and then to McDonald's, you know, Mark, right across the street from Adventure. And we went there for lunch, and so in addition to the standard fries, hamburgers, and nuggets, we ordered one big chocolate chip cookie. You know how you make those big ones? Well, he took it and broke it in half to share with me. But when he saw that his half was a little bit bigger than mine, he broke off another piece from his and gave it to me. Now you'd say, well, that's just being fair. But his little sacrifice is an example of altruism, though not really a moral imperative. He didn't have to. But he kind of did that just because it was a fair thing to do and because it made him feel good. And he's 10 years old, 9 years old, 10 years. No, he's 10, yeah, he's 10. And so I was impressed. And I said, next chance I get, I'm going to tell that story. So this is it, because it just happened. Anyhow, you can see that maybe that stretches a point, and you can argue with me about whether it fits in here. But again, I love to tell the story. Here are some example questions to test your own altruism. your own sense of justice and equity, your own compassion in human relations. And again, just something to think about, no judgments. Do you return lost money if you can find the owner? Do you do your best to help someone in a medical emergency? Does it upset you to see someone else in pain? Now, I know it upsets you when you see yourself in pain, but when you see someone else, you really feel bad about that and want to help. Are you always on time out of respect for another person or commitment? Do you give money to a homeless person? Do you expect a quid pro quo when you help another person? Meaning, do you expect a favor for a favor? Our second Unitarian Universalist principle says justice, equity, and compassion in human relations is a principle of ours. And so that's what this discussion has been about. So thus endeth the lesson in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of leaving you with more questions than answers. Additionally, in this case, on this day, January 1st, I hope this discussion has inspired your own New Year's resolutions as you leave this place and as you continue this, which I hope is the best year in your life. Live long and prosper. Go in love. Go in peace. And may your own God be with you as you begin this new year. Amen.
I invite you to join in singing our closing hymn. It's in the Teal hymnal, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Please stand as you're willing and able.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a
sit down for a moment, please. I have 3 sets of quotations for closing words. First one is from Richard Dawkins, who's your evolutionary biologist. This is from his book called The Selfish Gene. It often turns out on closer inspection that acts of apparent altruism are really selfishness in disguise. This one from Mark Twain, who always has something to say about everything. The thing for us to do is to do our duty and not worry about whether anybody sees us doing it or not. I like that. And this one is from Warren Buffett, who, as you know, is a big financial genius in this country. If you're in the luckiest 1% of humanity, you owe it to the rest of humanity to think about the other 99%.
As we extinguish the chalice, let the light and the warmth stay within us, and that powerful light guide us through 2023 together.
I invite you to join in singing our congregational benediction.
May the blessings of truth be upon us. May the power of love direct us. And may the peace of this community sustain us till we meet again.
Thank you, and again, Happy New Year to all of you. And of all the places you could have been, joining us makes it very warm to all of us. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Katie, for joining us a second time. Hope there's a third, perhaps a fourth. And thank you, Vincent family, for making us a part of your day. To all of us, here's to a wonderful week and a wonderful New Year. Go in peace. We do have refreshments in the back. Please continue and share with one another.
Should all the
Everybody join, please.